And welcome everybody to Shh, we don't talk about that. We're doing things a little bit different this week, as I'm sure you've noticed. It's not our fearless leader, Jason, who is introducing us. As much as I love hearing the sound of his voice, this is something that I've tried to kind of conquer myself, is to public speaking and speaking out on my own. So I've decided that I'm going to start introducing the show. And that's what I'm doing today. And then I'm going to take it over to Natalie, and Natalie's got a little thing that she's going to say. And hopefully this will get more smooth as we continue to go on with it. But from today, here we go.
Absolutely. Baby steps.
Baby steps.
Literally every day are baby steps.
Tiny baby steps.
Tiny baby steps.
Okay, anyway.
So I just wanted to put out there a little disclaimer. Even though I am a therapist, these episodes are not therapy. What Joanna and I bring to the table each week are tips, tricks, and tools for finding your own therapist and working your own therapeutic process. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there as a gentle reminder. Which I think is pretty great.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that you're here in person.
I know. We haven't even like really seen each other in a while. So.
It's so good.
Yeah. I don't get to come up to, Natalie lives about 2 hours away from me, so I don't get to come up too much to see her, but I want to come up and see her mom and see her, and we were working out some technical issues, so here we are. And actually we like the vibe of it, so maybe we'll do in-person ones. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think it'll be pretty cool.
Yeah. So what are we talking about this week, Nat?
Today we're talking about cognitive behavioral therapy.
What is
and
cognitive
what
behavioral?
all that is.
What is it?
Right?
People want to know, what is cognitive behavioral therapy? People want to know. They're clamoring to know.
They probably are. They're lined up in the sidewalks and the streets. I can see it now.
I know. My email is just overflowing with questions. So anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in a nutshell.
So before I get into cognitive behavioral therapy, I want to talk a little bit about what's talk therapy.
Right.
So talk therapy is essentially what was created by Freud all those years ago.
Because it's different.
Very different.
Right.
Very different. So where we've talked a little bit about difference between counseling and therapy, talk therapy was like the beginning, and then every other kind of therapy modality followed after that. So at talk therapy, you're simply doing just that. Like you're going in and you're sitting down face to face with your person, or Zoom screen to Zoom screen with your person. And you're talking about whatever it is that's bothering you, whatever it is that's coming up for you, how you're managing things, how you're not managing things. You're there to vent, you're there to stress, you're there to cry, you're there to rage, whatever it is.
My boss did this to me at work. Exactly. It's very surface level.
Yes. And a lot of times what that clinician will kind of do is validate, like, that sounds really difficult. I can't imagine how you're dealing. Like, how are you feeling about things? Kind of wanting to know what your feelings are. But there's not a lot of, like, getting into the root of, like, why things are coming up the way that they're coming up.
Well, is talk therapy, though, would that be when you do background? Because that seems like what I did with my therapist when I went in. We kind of dove in from the beginning of, like, here are my problems. And yes, it started off very surface level, but then it kind of dove into that background history of, like, but there's also these things that happen, just so you know. I don't need to get into them because they handled. Yeah. But just so you know, they happened.
just so you know.
So you know.
Yes, absolutely. Because our very first session, or a couple of 2-3 sessions, is us kind of gathering all that insight. We haven't lived in your pocket. I tell my clients all the time, I haven't walked around in your pocket for 20, 30, 40, 80 years. So I'm trying to gather as much information as possible to then create, like, overall what that treatment plan is going to look like, and then the treatment process. Like, what things am I going to do to help you get to where you want to be by the end of this?
Right.
So yeah, essentially you're just talking about things.
So what is the benefit then of talk therapy if you're not going down and healing anything that's deep? Then why would a therapist only invest in talk therapy with a client?
It's an excellent question. A lot of times, like, brand new clinicians right out of school.
Okay.
It's kind of easier. It's a little bit more comfortable. They don't necessarily have to stick to a modality because maybe they don't know one yet because they haven't been through enough trainings yet. Sometimes people just want to go in. Some of my clients will be like, I just need to bitch today. Can I just bitch today? Great, just bitch today. So it depends on like what the client is needing. A lot of times, especially for like a brand new client, like I did a consultation for a new one today, and he was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I know that what I have been doing is not working. So what does this look like?
How often do we say that?
So then I'm able to kind of explain, this is kind of what it looks like with me. Here's some of the modalities I use, but also, just like I said last week when Jason, you had asked that question, like, do you tailor make it to the individual so it can be tailor made for the individual?
Okay. All right. So then when you have talk therapy, like we talked about, when I started with my therapist, and I don't know if this is where we want to branch into this, but I started with talk therapy, but I didn't know that I branched into CBT until looking back later. Because as you're going along the steps, like they don't necessarily, your therapist doesn't necessarily go, and now we're going to use this modality, and they don't always start handing you worksheets or giving you homework. Sometimes the homework that they give you is just something verbal. I want you to start meditating. I want you to try 2-minute meditations. I'd like you to try that once a week. See how that works for you. Here's some meditations for you. And then increase it from there. If it works for you the first 2 weeks, then I want you to try it 2 times a week, and then 4 times a week, and we'll increase from there. We never want to keep anything stagnant or plateaued. The goal is always growth. And so it's just interesting because when you go in it, you're so scared, and you're scared, and you don't understand what's happening.
Yeah.
You don't understand the processes, and you think maybe you need to, and you really don't. If you all you have to do is find somebody you trust and you're comfortable with.
Absolutely. That's the biggest piece.
And then just trust in the process and be willing to put in some work.
Absolutely.
And that's why I have on my arms, trust your journey, change takes courage. And when I get real, like, I don't do this much anymore, but when my panic attacks would happen, man, and I could just look down and I could read that, change takes courage, trust your journey, or trust your journey, change, whichever way I folded them. And those little grounding techniques in between with the talk therapy and then the soul progressions are what helped me be able to do the bigger modalities.
Absolutely.
But.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like we said in the very beginning, baby steps.
Yeah. Baby steps.
Tiny baby steps.
And I always say this too, like, people always say, keep pushing forward. Jason and we've talked about this, Jason, like, keep pushing forward. And then I said, well, I kind of feel like, yes, but they don't always have to be the same size steps, and they don't always have to be forward.
True.
Maybe you take a step to the side or take a step backwards or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's okay. As long as you do keep moving and you don't just let yourself backslide, and you don't try and do anything to stop it, or, you go way off on a tangent to the side and you completely lose sight of what your focus or your goals are. As long as you're kind of keeping your eye on the prize and moving forward, and Jason, that's something that you've talked about yourself as being a mentality that speaks to you.
It's a mindset, for sure.
Yeah. And I think, and it is a choice. That's something we've spoken about. Yeah. These things in therapy, in life, in any kind of success, in any kind of progress, it's all a choice. Yeah. I hate to break it to you. There's no magic pill. As much as I have a wand on my arm, that's about the only wand that I have that works. And I have to like rub it, get a little magic there, and like, okay, but the magic comes from me. Because I'm the one who's got to make the choice. I'm the one who's got to put in the effort. I'm the one who's got to say, I want something different. Being stuck in a rut in these, before you do therapy, being stuck in the shame, the terror, the loss, the whatever it is that you're going through is really hard. Going through therapy 100%. Is really, really, really hard. 100%. Both of them are really hard. But the difference is this: therapy has an outcome that can't be taken from you, of positive mindset, of being able to change your outlook, and of being able to help yourself through difficult processes, so that when you have talked about this before, I still have the same problems, but I look at them very differently. I handle them very differently.
Absolutely. Because those things aren't going to go away. Like, we
Right.
can't control what's going to happen outside of us.
Nope.
In any way, shape, or form. So the more we're able to control how we feel, how we react, how we behave, is the only way that we stop responding in a negative, unhealthy manner to everything that's happening outside of us. So then it becomes, it's no longer happening to me. I'm stopping it from being about me.
And that's the essence of what CBT is that we're looking at those thoughts that are affecting our emotions and our actions.
Yep.
That we are then doing to the, we're then going out in the outside world and using these thoughts, actions, feelings, beliefs, all these things that are created based off of the original thought that we got. Which, the original thought that you get might be something that might confirm or deny a belief that you've had from something before. And it's like, if you don't take the time to break down the processes and do it with a professional, and that's the thing, CBT is not something that, like, I can sit here and try and talk to you about my process. I can explain it to you. I can give you some analogies, but I couldn't do CBT with you. I'm not a professional, even though I've experienced it. Somebody needs to go to somebody like you,
right,
to experience CBT therapy. Even you can't even do really. You can kind of get it on YouTube, but you're not going to get the experience. It's like you made an analogy before, like one was like, I don't know, something very, very small, and then the other one was like going and getting one was like watching a YouTube cooking show, and the other was like going and getting it in person.
Yes.
Yeah. So kind of along those lines.
Absolutely. Watching someone bake a cake versus learning how to construct the ingredients perfectly and why you're putting this much in. Like, you can't ask a YouTube video like questions, and the YouTube video can't challenge you in return.
And tailor it to you.
And tailor it specifically to you. And with CBT, there's a lot of kind of getting you to challenge your own thoughts in order to then impact your feelings, which then change your beliefs, which then now you're going to respond completely different.
Correct.
But if you're reading it in a book, or you're even trying to help a friend, like, you're not necessarily sure, okay, where can I challenge? Is this a challenge? And then your friend gets pissed because now you're challenging me in a way that I don't like. I don't want to do this anymore. Where, like, as a professional, like, I'm not emotionally invested in my clients the same way I am with friends.
Right.
So it just comes across different.
Yeah. So
I'm back in, well, everybody's heard of Freud, so everybody knows who Sigmund Freud is. And all of his kookological theories. No disrespect to those that are true Freudians. It is. Or your mother.
It was your mother.
So in the 60s, Aaron Beck is the one that kind of created and developed CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. So taking it like a step up, but also like a step deeper from just talk therapy. So the premise is obviously looking at helping you to recognize how things impact you today in the moment based on events that have happened to you in the past. So there's always a situation, and then under the situation comes those automatic thoughts. And automatic thoughts are developed based on how things have happened in the past. Maybe you have ran into the kitchen a couple of times when you were a little kid and you tripped and fell, and like maybe your mom was like, oh my God, quit being an idiot. So then say mom does that 7, 8, 10 times throughout your childhood, maybe in a month, maybe in a year, maybe in 3 years. But the underlying message that you're getting is every time I run or every time I trip, I must be an idiot. So now you're having an automatic thought, I'm an idiot because I just ran or I just tripped. And then from the automatic thought, like, comes into your feelings. Like, okay, how am I feeling about that? Well, my automatic thought is that I'm an idiot because I ran or I tripped. And because I'm an idiot, well, like, I feel bad. I feel shame. I feel uncomfortable. I feel angry. I feel sadness, whatever the feelings are, which then leads to your negative belief. Well, if I am an idiot and I feel this way, then I truly am an idiot, which means I'm not smart. I'm not intelligent. I can't make a mistake. There's something wrong with me. I'm a bad person. I'm a bad kid. All those negative beliefs start to build in you every time you run or you fall You have that automatic thought, which lead to those feelings. Now you have those beliefs. And because you have those beliefs, now you're reacting in a different way. Maybe you're crying, maybe you're running away, maybe you're getting angry and you're hitting people. However your response is based on all the other events taking place.
Correct.
So Beck was like, okay, there's got to be a way to interrupt that somewhere. How can we interrupt that so people stop doing some of these steps? So looking at, okay, can we interrupt between the beliefs and the action actually taking place? Can we interrupt between the feelings and the beliefs? Can we interrupt between the thoughts and the feelings? Like, because we can't stop the situation. The situation's gonna happen, but where can we interrupt that's gonna be the most effective for the client in order for you to then stop? Like, I ran or I tripped. Immediate thought, I'm an idiot. You're not an idiot. I just made a mistake. I was running too fast. There's a pebble in the road. I wasn't paying attention. So then you're able to rationalize and talk yourself out of that negative automatic thought that you had. So then it's like, instead of, I'm a terrible person, I can't do anything right, I'm a failure, I'm wrong, whatever it is, then it's like, everybody makes mistakes. You're fine. It's fine. People laughed. Who cares? It's kind of funny. So you're able to kind of like resonate those emotions inside yourself, so you're not feeling negative. Instead, you're giving yourself grace to everybody trips, everybody runs.
Well, and I actually had an experience like that on our trip, where I had to use kind of the CBT, and it was about nice. One of my vape pens. I had a disposable vape pen. We were at the house, we were getting ready to leave, and I didn't want the owners. I didn't want to leave it. I couldn't find it. It was bright yellow, and I just didn't want to leave it there, and I was very stressed about it, and I started to get very, very concerned about. I didn't book the room. I didn't know who the owners were. I wasn't in contact with it. I wasn't in charge of any of it. Right. And really worked up and upset and started sitting on the bed. And I mean, tears started and I started yep. And you fucked up again. And I had to, and I stopped it. And I remember hearing in my head, the brakes. I'm one of those audio people. I think they haven't figured that out yet. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. There's smokers here. Would we be freaking out if they left a pack of cigarettes? Because it's legal. Where we were in California, we were in Vegas. It's legal. Mm-hmm. So would we be freaking out if somebody left a pack of cigarettes or somebody left cigarette butts?
Right.
No, we wouldn't. So yes, it would be nice if I find this. It is expensive and it is a little different caliber, but it's still, both things are regulated by age. Both things are a controlled substance. Both things are something that are legal, and I used as an adult. Right. I didn't use both of them, but both things were used by adults legally in the home, and we used them as we were allowed to. Right. So there was nothing for me to freak out about. And then all of the tension went out of my body, and I was like, okay. And then I found it in the fucking box. Because I put it back because I want to be responsible and not lose it in the first place. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
At least I'll admit the shit. So, but anyway, that was but I had to calm down before I would even look. Because I looked at that box 4 times. I was like, well, it's not there. It's not, I couldn't even think I would put it there. I wouldn't put it there, right? Because I had fucked up. I was a fuck up, and a fuck up wouldn't put it there. Yeah. But when I calmed down and could take the negative thoughts away, yes, and challenge them, then it was like, wait a minute, all of these, and you're not a fuck up, and then it was, did you put it in the box? Yeah. Oh, there it is. And then I remembered all the things. So, it was such a classic CBT process. Absolutely. That when you brought that up, I was like, oh my God, that's the exact same thing that happened, but with illegals. Well, legal substances, but controlled substances. So.
And it is a perfect example because the thought was the situation was you lost it, or you didn't lose it. You just couldn't find it. I misplaced it. Yeah. So then the thought was oh my God, I need to freak out. I
lost it. It's gone.
And then the beliefs came in. I'm a fuck up. Everything else. So then, and your emotions are all heightened. Now you're emotional and you're crying and you're believing like, you keep doing this shit again. You keep fucking, but you were able to stop it right before the actions.
Yep.
And able to,
wait a minute,
stop sign, screeching noise
right.
in your head.
Yep.
And you're like, oh my God. So then your action
like,
was,
do not
let me look in the box. And there it is.
Yeah.
So finding the different spots in which to interrupt that process is the most important thing.
That's my Plinko board in my brain
Absolutely.
that I talked about.
Absolutely.
I have to be able to switch where I would normally react.
Yeah.
Cry, freak out, blame myself. That's what I got to get it over to here, which is, wait a minute, take a breath, go look through everything. Because I had dumped my suitcase. I had done all of the things, where I remember I dumped my suitcase. My friend goes, oh no, Angela.
I was going to say, that's totally Angela.
She's all like, I don't know what's happening.
She's
right
like,
now.
I don't know how to help my friend. Oh no. And I am the one who typically has the modalities, like, we should try breathing or try, and I was like, I don't know, I'm freaking out, everything's wrong, and then within a couple of minutes of, you just got to calm down. That's part of where I talked about, like, I've talked to you about, I have another acronym, assess, but one of them is you got to slow down. Like, you have to slow down.
Yes.
You got to slow everything down. If you can't respond with anything but freaking out, don't say anything at all.
Yeah.
Just keep your mouth shut. Keep all the thoughts in your head for a moment and sort through them and think, are these helpful?
Yeah.
Do I need these? Are these going to get me what I want?
Right. And your body has gotten so used to just going through the process so quickly that a lot of times you don't even know what's happening.
No.
Because it's just happened so quickly and it becomes
kind of what they talk about, what Freud and these guys talk about, is how they learn, and there's like a muscle memory too with it.
Yes, absolutely.
Because like if you say like, oh my God, I'm dying with things, and your body kind of records like, oh, this is a really dangerous situation.
Right.
And it'll lift your anxiety, even if it's something like, I'm just dying at work. So then you get higher anxiety at work because your mind registers, well, it says I'm dying.
Right.
Like the sense of self is telling me I'm dying, so I have to rely on that.
Right.
Even though sense of self knows this is not what's actually happening. Brain does not understand hyperbole.
No.
It does not understand sarcasm.
Sure doesn't.
No.
It'd be great if it did.
Yeah.
It'd be so much easier. But
it's
it doesn't.
super dumb. You would think that it's smarter than it is.
It's very basic.
Very. Go forward. Me go.
Yeah. Yeah. Very,
Me
very
stop.
black and white. And then we add the rest of the gray in there.
Correct.
So like, how do we sift through all the gray, and where do we interrupt ourselves in that process so that we don't keep responding in the same way?
Right.
Because
that's the loop. That's the pattern you get stuck in.
Absolutely.
That you can't get out of. That ends up making you look crazy when you're just trying to like tell people your needs.
Yeah. And
it ends up pushing away all of the people around you that you want close to you. And that's how you end up in therapy going, I don't know what's wrong with me. Everything's a hot dumpster fire. Please help me. I don't know who that could be. It wasn't me.
It was her. It was absolutely her. It was absolutely
You're a fucking asshole.
It's all of us. We all do it. We all do it. Like, it's got to be me. Like, I have to be the problem. Otherwise, all these things wouldn't keep happening. So, like, an easy underlying goal of, like, CBT is what really is a me problem and what really is a them problem or a that problem.
Oh, that's
whatever
a hard
the thing is. Which is super hard to do. And, like, I have clients struggle with that all the time. And they'll get upset about something, and I'm like, okay, tell me why you're upset. And they'll explain why they're upset. And I'm like, okay, what part of that is your ownership? Because I haven't heard, like, what you've done to then contribute to how you're feeling. And sometimes I get flipped off, or they're like, the light comes on, and they're like, oh, I see what you did there. I'm like, I'm just asking a question.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it really a you problem? Are you really the one that is causing said thing based on how you're feeling about something? Or is something happening to you, you're reacting and taking that problem on as your own?
Correct.
And it's hard to differentiate between the two. And it takes time. Your brain learned how to cycle really quickly through something negative. So it takes time for your brain to unlearn that and then to relearn something else.
Right. Yeah. And it really likes to blame itself. So.
Oh, absolutely. When it's easier to blame yourself.
Yeah. Well, the brain likes to build an ego to protect you.
It does.
So.
It does.
Yeah. It's all about me.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that, like you say, ego, and I know last time we were talking a little bit about ego, like, oh, your ego must be so big that this is all has to be your problem. You are at the epicenter of everything negative. And again, let's circle back to our friend Freud. And his variation of ego is not the same that we define as someone having a big ego today.
Right.
So it's a little bit different. But he defined like an id, ego, and a super ego. And they're all like developed really quickly early in life. So your id is like your pleasure principle. So that's babies. Babies are hungry. So what do babies do? Babies cry. Someone comes and feeds them. Babies are cold. What do? They cry. Someone comes and covers them up. They're wet. They cry. So they learn all I have to do is cry and I get my needs met. So it's just the pleasure principle, immediate gratification. And I've now learned if I cry, someone's going to come and attend to me. The ego develops from like toddlers, like when they start to become a toddler up until they're about 5. And the ego is like the reality principle. And so toddlers are learning as they're like bumping into things and falling down and crying. And you're like, okay, there's no blood. Like, are you okay? And being able to stand, like, we're no longer reacting to them immediately the same way we do when they're babies. Or we're out in public and they want to throw a fit. Okay, we don't throw fits in public. If you're upset, like, let's leave. So you're not allowing them to engage in their id behavior anymore. You're teaching them what's appropriate and what's not appropriate based on like societal norms, if you will. So that's where kind of like the reality principle comes in, the realistic principle. There's a hair that drives me nuts when that happens. I apologize.
Stop growing them.
I know. And I should say, for those that can't see me, I was pulling a hair off of my arm. My oldest daughter was like,
no,
Mom,
she wasn't.
Mom, I need you to remember that, like, not everybody can see you. So when you're making references about things, you need to say whatever it is because people are listening. And I'm like, you're right. You're right. So there you go, Gemini. That one's for you. Circling back. So then the ego or the super ego. So that's about the time you hit 5. And by now, like, little kids have learned, like, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, like, what's right, what's wrong, based on, like, parents being like, no, that's not how we do things. No, we don't hit your brother with the Tonka truck. No, we don't touch the hot stove. Yes, this is okay for you to do this. Yes, you can go cry in your room if you're upset. Yes, you can come get a hug. Like, teaching them the differences between right and wrong. And it's also the time when whatever our moral beliefs are, we're like slowly instilling in our kids. So by the time that they're 5, they're adapting, and not all kids, not all parents, not all things, but they're generally adapting what our morals are. They are taking those morals on. So,
Right.
Horrible example, but one that I grew up with in my own home, racism. Like, the more my parents would talk negatively about other cultures or other races, like, that's instilled in us as kids. Something I bucked the system for consistently from a very young age because I was not about to play that game. But, like, it sticks and it's stuck for he who shall not be named. Because we don't talk about that one. But, like, it's stuck to where, like, I can't be friends with, I can't talk to, I can't interact with because of race, culture, creed, sexuality, or whatever the thing is. So, like, we as parents have a huge responsibility. And we have no idea what the fuck we're doing. Like, we're just trying to do the best that we can, but then realizing, oh my God, we're putting all these thoughts into our little babies' heads. So I need to be more aware of that. I need to talk to them more about things. And that's where just having more open communication comes from. But anyways, so super ego. That's the moral principle. So I've learned right from wrong. I know kind of a generalistic what's good and bad because mom and dad have taught me. I'm kind of understanding a little bit more about how the world works, how it's shaped. I do know that if I cry, someone's going to come and tend to me in a healthy home. So like I'm able to kind of like figure out my own system, and it's just their brains are super undeveloped, obviously,
right,
because they're brand new. So they're learning all these things and taking in so much more information than we as adults can even rationalize, because I've lived gaining almost 50 years of knowledge into my head. I couldn't imagine how much knowledge I was gaining by the time I was a year old. Like, just mind blowing. And then if you grow up in a non-healthy home, so you have like a trauma home that you grew up in for a variety of reasons, any kind of abuses, neglect, things of that nature, abandonment, all of those things, that also changes how your id, ego, and superego show up.
correct.
So your id essentially never grows out of instant gratification. So you can be a heck of a lot more like impulsive, uncontrollable, like your immediate like reactions to things, and not even having a moment to think about what that reaction is. A lot of like criminal type deviant behavior, because right and wrong hasn't been instilled, but then I've also learned like I haven't got my needs met, so I have to figure out a way to meet them on my own. An example we were talking about earlier is like, okay, the baby cries and the baby needs milk, so someone comes and gives the baby milk. Well, now say the baby's growing up in the trauma home, the baby cries, nobody comes. The baby cries, nobody comes. Over and over, the baby learns there's no point in me crying because nobody's gonna come. So now I'm just kind of reacting to my environment. Now I'm a little bit older, and I've already learned if I cry, nobody's going to come. So in order to feed myself, I need to figure out how to do that. So I'm watching where they keep the food, and I'm going and I'm stealing the food. I don't know that I'm stealing it because I don't know if it's wrong, because I know that I'm hungry. Nobody's helping me. So like the id and the ego are developed or underdeveloped, as it were, and they're not able to kind of separate those pieces and learn that there's a right way and there's a wrong way, because maybe the parents aren't absent, or maybe they're getting hit for everything that they do, or any other type of abuses that can occur. So they don't learn how to navigate the same way. And now we're going to be a 5-year-old who's now going to have an unrealistic morality issue or unrealistic judgments about people. So I can be way more judgmental or ride on a higher moral horse, not because I believe that I'm better than anybody, but in my perception of the world, this is all I know, and you don't fit into my perception. So because you don't fit into what I perceive to be okay, you don't fit into what I perceive to be healthy, mind you, my mind is skewed. So I'm this kid, and I'm growing up in a family of violence. So there's drugs and guns and all the other things in my house all the time. I go over to this new kid's house. We have a play date. We're in kindergarten. Like, mom's home, like the house is all pretty and nice. There's no swearing. There's no guns stashed anywhere. There's definitely no drugs. There's hugs. That I can't hang out with that kid anymore because there's something wrong with that kid. Because I'm not realizing that there's something wrong in my home.
And you might even do something like destructive or sabotagey or something to that relationship.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I was the kid from the bad, from the home that was unstable, that went to the other homes that was like, wait, your mom hugs you? Like, you guys have family dinners? Like, you get told I love you? Like, I don't... wait, and it just, I remember a lot of feelings and emotions about it, and I did some bad shit as a kid, just acting out because some of my friends had homes that I wanted to live in. Watch that dog. Because some of my friends had homes that I wanted to live in, or I perceived I wanted to live in, because what you saw on the surface was not necessarily what was going on. But
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. It's crazy. It's definitely crazy.
so
And
yeah,
the way our brains are just, the way they develop and how they develop in a healthy home versus an unhealthy home
right.
then sets us up for different failures in many areas and different successes in many areas.
Well, and the thing is that you can even have a healthy home that you grew up in where maybe your needs are met, but you're just like your parents work all the time.
Right.
You know, and they're just not around. You have food, you've got clothes, you've got plus stuff to play with, but your parents are working all the time.
Yeah.
You don't have a ton of direction that way, so your needs aren't met that way. There's lots of different ways. And then later, let's say you get into a relationship that's maybe when you're older, that's not healthy, that's toxic, that somebody beats you down or something. You can end up having this kind of trauma, not on the same level as a childhood experience, but still having deep, profound wounds happen to you on a like equal level of like, there's no comparing trauma. Trauma's trauma, you know.
Right.
You break an arm, you break an arm. It's yes, there are different kinds of breaks, but
right.
You break an arm, you break an arm. That's the same kind of thing we're talking about with trauma. So there might be different kinds, but man, any kind of thing that you're exposed to that beats down on your psyche and you don't have the capability to get yourself out of it, to remove yourself from, to help yourself lift yourself out of it, either emotionally, mentally, physically, stop it, whatever it is, when you are held trapped, that is when the psyche really starts to break on all this stuff. And I think that people don't understand how much they store in their bodies because they just aren't you're not in control when you're a kid, especially.
Right.
But then when you get, you're young and you're in a relationship that's not healthy or something, and again, your voice is silenced or whatever, or you're hurt or something like that. It's just amazing how much it can change your brain, your body, your reactions.
Absolutely.
And it takes, the thing that people don't understand is you're not stuck that way. Part of you will always be changed, but you can choose to act and behave differently. You just have to learn it. And you don't know it yet because of all the things you've been exposed to. Your brain might have forgotten it, or maybe you were never even taught it. So.
Absolutely. And I think it was a client I was talking to, and they're like, well, I've always done things this way. And I'm like, you haven't. You were taught how to do them. You didn't start doing them from jump. Like it took 2, 3, 27 times for you to then, okay, now this is now my cycle. So again, to undo the cycle, you're just not going to be able to change it from jump. We got to do it 2, 3, 27 times over and over in order for you to unlearn and learn something different.
Well, I think that's true. Like, you have to think of mental health care like anything else, like keeping up your hair or your weight or, with the latest fashion trends or your makeup or whatever. Like, you have to put in effort. There's research. There's time. You have to dedicate and want it and then put in the effort that's needed for it. Yeah. Whatever level that may be. Everybody's going to have their own different comfort levels for it. But if you're not going to put any effort into it, then you're definitely not going to get anything out of it. And that's where I think a lot of people don't understand. They go into therapy, they talk. They hear what the therapist says. They go, okay, yep, I hear you. They leave, but they don't implement. Yeah. They either think it won't work for them. That's it's bullshit. It's too hard. I don't know how. It's scary. Whatever it is, and the implementation doesn't happen. And that's where a lot of the chain gets broken in this repair. Yeah. So, but it's amazing the repair that can happen when you start dedicating yourself and doing the work. It just does. It takes a while. Just like, unfortunately, you can gain 10 pounds easily in like a week or two. Right. But it'll take you a good month or two to lose that 10 pounds.
Unless you're men.
Well, yeah.
Like, that's just not even fair with their metabolism. It's just rude.
I guess it depends on the man. Keith doesn't have that experience. I think it depends on the
That's
male.
true. It really does depend.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because if you're like an athlete, too, for women, they can lose it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I can't. Like my brother does arm wrestling.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I need to lose 20 pounds for whatever.
Your brother
weight
is
class.
a giant.
I mean, he really
doesn't,
is. He really
human, like, human norms don't apply to him.
But he'll
he's
be
literally,
like,
he's 6'7".
I can lose this.
He's a giant.
I can
So
lose
anyway.
this by the end of the week. And I'm like, how? He's like, I just don't eat any carbs. I'm like, for a week? He's like, yeah. I'm like, I can go carbless for like a month. And like, no, somehow it's magically still there. I'm just like, oh, I don't understand it. But
That's
same concept. Like
Yeah.
it's the repetition. We
Yeah.
don't become great at anything without repetition.
And consistency.
Definitely consistency.
Because if you, same thing with mental health, like if you start doing mental health stuff and then you get good, you're doing good, and then you stop doing all of your mental health tricks and your tools and you just like slide back in your old behavior, like all your shit's going to come back.
Yep.
There's no way that it's not going to. And it, cognitive behavioral therapy can help you change your mindset and how you look at things. But if you choose to go back to your old mindsets, the old problems will come back.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So. And I'll send you a list, Jason, to put in there. There's like some books that people might find helpful. There's some workbooks. There's some little cards, anything to help them, one, better understand what CBT is, but then also like being able to have something to physically read or touch for the people that enjoy that, or listening to an audiobook, or like following along in index cards, whatever the case is. Being able to help them understand, like, okay, this gives me a general idea of like what it's going to do. Now I need someone to help me put it into practice. I think that'll be super helpful. If you don't know, then you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know. Exactly. We say that all the time. You don't know until you know. And there is a learning curve with any kind of, when you're doing any kind of self-work.
Yes.
When you're doing any kind of, especially when you're doing repair from trauma. And so you have to give yourself grace, and that's why I talk about in COPE, like you have to exonerate yourself from any mistakes that you've made, anything that you didn't know, anything that you didn't know before and are now doing, but you realize like that was causing problems and I shouldn't have done that before. Like you didn't know, so you couldn't have known better. And that's one of the big things that we talked a little bit about, cognitive behavioral therapy being very similar to cognitive processing therapy. We'll do a separate episode on cognitive processing therapy, but one of the reasons that I wanted to mention it is because both of them ask similar questions. And that's, along with this learning curve, one of the things that I want listeners to remember is when you're having a challenging time, when you want to react to something, when you're having a challenging thought or a moment, stop and ask yourself, slow down and ask yourself, like, is this helpful?
Right.
Is this something that I need to react to? Is this a me problem or a them problem? Is this something that is because they want or because I actually need it for my safety, sense of survival, comfort? You need to slow down and ask yourself, what the validity is of acting on the thing you want to act on before you take action, not reflecting on it after and going, I really wish I hadn't have done that. And you'll get there because eventually, first you start by noticing and going, oh man, I really wish I hadn't have done that. And you forgive yourself. And then you start noticing more. And then before you know it, you stop doing it. And then you notice after the fact and go, oh shit, I didn't do the thing. It was fucking cool. Oh my God, that was amazing. And you got through whatever thing that was, conflict, whatever it was you got through, and you didn't freak out or whatever, and you got a different result. And then that helps propel you into wanting to do even more and more and more. But, you won't get those different results until you start implementing it regularly. It's not just something that you can implement once or twice. Just like we talked about, like you can't just eat a salad and I'm skinny.
Right.
You can't just go to the gym once and be like, and that's it. Why am I not a size 2?
Right.
I don't understand. I can't, I worked out all my body and I can't move. It doesn't work. It's a slow building process. That's the same is true with any kind of undoing of unhealthy behaviors and rebuilding of healthy mental health coping skills and techniques. tools. And that's why we're trying to give you these tools, these tips. But this is not therapy. Going to therapy is so much different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where you can do things like inner child work and shadow work and all those things that we'll have episodes on. But you start, for me, I started with CBT, and then CBT, I built everything off of that. So that's kind of why we started this episode that way, so that we could then branch from here. Next we'll go into EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprogramming, for those who wonder what the acronym stands for. But I think that's all that I had to share. Jason, do you have any questions?
You know, the one thing that, pardon me.
I know we're all like hoarse. Mine's from the west and the desert.
You know, the one thing that, because I've been sitting here taking notes and what have you, and the one thing that stood out that you said earlier in the show is that you challenge your own thoughts. And
Yes.
the first thing that I thought of was, a while ago I had seen a meme, and it said something along the lines, and I don't know if this correlates into what we're talking about, but this was the thought that it triggered is, your body doesn't, much like Natalie said, your body doesn't know sarcasm. So you have to be careful what you say, what you think to put out in the universe, because your body is going to respond accordingly. Like, oh, I'm terrible, or oh, I suck, or oh, I'm stupid.
Yep.
Even though as you're saying it, there may be a sense of sarcasm or a little hint of dark humor, but your body doesn't know that.
Right.
And I feel like that is something that needs to be reiterated time and time again, because it's been in my experience, when I hear people say that, I automatically know that somewhere within the recesses of their soul, they're dealing with something. And this is the way that they handle it. Because if it's almost like a defense mechanism, at least it has been for me, if I make light of it, or if I make a joke of it, nobody else can, or nobody else can take that preemptive strike against me. So I feel like that's something that needs to, I mean, across the board, that's something that people need to be reminded of time and time and time again. Be careful what you say. Be careful what you think, because your body internally, whether you realize it in real time or not, is going to respond accordingly. And that's something that gets lost. And especially in this day and age, and this happens a lot with the younger demographic, in a time, in a day and age where they need instant gratification. There is no patience. They expect everything to happen right fucking now.
And not just that, Jason. I hear kids say, "Oh my God, I'm dying. Oh my God, I'm dead. I'm dying. This is killing me. Oh my God, I can't take this. I'm dying." And saying things like that, even to your body, or, like, I can't even think of it's so hyperbolic. I can't think of some of the things that I've heard some of the younger generation, I'm talking in the 20s, to teens and 20s, talking about saying, and they talk about the way that their body is being, pain is being inflicted on their body because their food is wrong.
Right.
Like, this is just killing my stomach. My body is dying here, things like that. And your body does hear things like that.
Absolutely.
You have a primitive brain that is so old. That's what you were talking about, Jason, is you have that primitive brain that is so old, it doesn't recognize the difference. It just knows that this is what you're telling it, and I have muscle memory, and I need to protect it now because, something's bad's going on because you're talking about dying.
Right.
You're right.
So, I mean, there's, okay, sidebar, because that's what we do here on the network.
That's right.
It's kind of like the unofficial mantra across the board. We have F-bombs and sidebars. That's just what we do here.
What the fuck are you talking about, man?
Joanna, I'm going to peel the curtain back a little bit. You sent me and I'm not going to read it verbatim. I'm just going to kind of be vague about it, but you sent me a message yesterday or the day before about the correspondence that you're getting now here in this is the 6th episode of this show that we've done, and you're very active on the Facebook page for the show. And you had sent me a message that you're getting correspondence back from people that are listening, that this show is finally starting to gain some traction. People are paying attention to it, and people are responding accordingly. I remember thinking earlier in the broadcast here, as we started the actual show, because we were on here for about 10 minutes before I hit the record button, trying to get everything situated and what have you. But once you started rolling, and I know you said, I'm awful nervous about introducing the show and this, that, and the other thing. On week 2, I'm like, it's just a matter of time before she gets her legs under her, and she's going to be able to take the wheel from me. And I was waiting for that to happen. Well, today that happened. And all that nervousness that you had, like, I understand why you felt that way, but I also believed in you on week 2 that it was going to happen. It was just a matter of when you were ready.
Yep. Right.
Now, with that being said, the dynamic of this week's show is different than every other week that you guys have done here, whether Natalie has been on here or not. Mm-hmm. Your presentation, your approach to this, and the overall vibe and feel of this show dramatically shifted this week. And it's because you gained a sense of strength, and pride, and all of the good things that come into the show, and you were able to channel that. Be gone was your nervousness. Be gone was your trepidation. Be gone was all these things that kept you from taking the wheel. Well, now that I've seen and that you have demonstrated that you are capable of this, this to me, from my position as the producer of the show, looking at you, hearing you, more importantly, you have finally found your niche. You have finally found your path. You have got to a point to where you have achieved a level of comfort in this endeavor that I have been waiting for you to achieve. And this is what's really going to resonate with your listeners. And I will tell you, I am so proud of you, because I know to a certain extent what that took internally for you to get to this place in your mindset.
Yeah.
And you need to be commended for that. So I'm very proud of you. And yes, you are changing lives. The both of you are. And your dynamic
all of
here,
us are.
I'm just here pushing buttons.
You're still part of it, and I don't like when you minimize your role in it.
Exactly. Whether you're being sarcastic or not, your body's remembering, Jason.
That's right.
Well, hang on. And I realize that, but I also realize that I merely set the table for you guys. I realize my role here. I realize what my role here. If I wasn't here, you wouldn't have the show. I understand that. However, at some point, and it happened this week, this isn't my show. This is your show.
Right.
I'm here to make sure it gets out to the masses in the best possible form that it can be. And I realize that that's an important thing. But the dynamic between you two today was off the fucking charts. And I had the absolute best seat in the house. I had front row, front and center. And I got to see it unfold on full display here. Yeah. So everything that you two wanted this show to be is here and now. And you, both of you, should be very proud of each other, should be very proud of yourselves, and I'm happy to be a part of it, because this is the kind of thing that there's a lot of people that need to hear this. And several times during the course of this episode, I'm like, that just registered with somebody. Somebody just needed to hear that. And you're going to get that correspondence back. It doesn't mean it's going to happen this week. Somebody may listen to this episode 3 weeks from now, and they're going to reach out and be like, I listened to episode 6, and I was going through this, but I heard you guys talk about that, and now shit's a lot clearer now. Right. So this is what this network is all about, and like I'm beyond proud to have a role in this, but more importantly than that, I am so proud of you two to see in a very short period of time, because I've worked with other people, other podcasters. It took them a while, like months, before they found their lane, for the lack of a better term. It didn't take you guys long. We just had to set the pieces on the table. Okay, here's what you have to work with. Do with it what you will, and you found your winning formula, and that's what resonates. And I love that for you guys. And you guys are doing amazing things.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I love it for us too.
I love it for us too. Yeah. Well, and you're going to put some resources in the in there too. I'm glad that you said that there's some things that'll resonate with people, because I didn't talk about my analogies about taking it to court this episode. It's on last episode and stuff, and those are also CBT tools. But there's so many tools that you can use out there that can help with CBT, that are CBT related, and then just getting a little bit of therapy can go a long way.
100%.
You'd be amazed. You'd be amazed what 6 months in therapy can do, even if you can't commit to a long-term thing.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of like really good options out there for people. Even like if you're not ready for one-on-one,
right,
there's group options.
Right.
Group options typically aren't covered by insurance, but you might pay 10, 15, 20 bucks to go in, to sit in a group to talk about whatever. It could be how to address your feelings. It could be a divorce support group. It could be a parenting group. It can literally be any kind of group to just kind of get your sea legs wet, as you were, like being able to just go sit in there and watching things take place. A lot of people are going to ask questions that maybe you're going to have, but you're like, I don't want to say anything. Great, you don't have to say them. Somebody else is going to ask them, but it's going to give you a different insight that's going to allow you to feel a little bit more comfortable with the process, that could then lead to you saying like, okay, I did some group work, just a parenting class to help me kind of figure out how to parent my kids better, divorce group recovery, just because my divorce was terrible, whatever it is. Now I'm ready to actually talk one-on-one to somebody else. So there's a lot of other options. A lot of churches also offer free services.
Right.
So like anybody that you're able to connect with, and if you have questions about connecting, please ask us, because that's what we're here for, right, on how to just get you started, even if you feel like I'm not ready to do the heavy stuff, but I want to do something light.
Baby steps.
What are my options? Excellent. That's what we're here for.
Right. So.
You guys found your niche, is all I'm saying. Aside from what you do for your shoot job, Natalie, this is another layer. I know it's a wrestling term. Your real life job. It's an absolute privilege, more than anything, to be able to sit on this side of the situation and just listen, because a lot of what you talk about, and a lot of the experiences that Joanna brings to light, like I'm like, I get it. Like you're able to describe things where initially I'd be like, I have no fucking idea what you're talking about. Right. But as you continue on and you're using these different examples, and you have a way to describe it where, oh, I get it now. And it's not over the top with big lengthy words and technical terms. You're able to use layman's terms and to make it make sense, because that's a big catchphrase. Make it make sense.
Yes.
Well,
right.
Well, you do. And when you make sense of things, it takes a layer of anxiety or trepidation or a lot of these preconceived notions that people may have with therapy. You hear therapy like, nope, I don't have anything wrong with me. Well, listen, it doesn't have to be on that level.
No,
there's nothing that says you have a lot of shit running through your head. You don't feel comfortable or feel like you can talk to your friends, your parents, or anything, but somebody will listen to you.
That's the greatest thing about therapy, is that somebody will go in, they will listen to you in an unbiased, non-judgmental way and just give you tools and tips. They're really just there to help you. They're not there they don't have any kind of preconceived agenda other than to help you. You literally pay them for that. So, if you don't click or something, that's one thing, then you leave. But if you guys click, like, just trust your therapist, do what they offer you, and I guarantee you will find some benefit. If your therapist offers you 10 things and you do one, you will find benefit. Mm-hmm. You will find benefit of it. And then it'll lead to another one and another one. And then before you know it, you'll be like me, starting your own fucking podcast because you've done so much therapy.
Exactly.
And you just love how much it's helped you.
And I appreciate that you kind of notice the different analogies, metaphors, like how I break things down.
Yeah.
Because I'm definitely not. Do I have education? Yes. Do I need to speak? Do I need to speak on that level? No.
We're not super grown up.
Sure. But like the clients that I deal with, like, I'm meeting you where you're at.
Right.
And if I'm here and you're here, it's already not going to work, because now it's a power struggle. And that's not going to make you want to do any work. So if I'm here or just a little bit lower, like you're the expert on you, I just have a really good idea about tips and tricks and tools that are going to help you. And I use so many examples because I've worked with all across the board different types of people with different educational levels to help them.
Sneaky. She does it and you don't even know.
I am. I'm sneaky that way.
Cerebral. I love it.
It is. It just helps them be like, oh, well, that makes total sense. Like the way that, and next week I'll talk about it, but the way I just, not next week. I keep saying next week, next show.
Yeah.
Even how I describe what EMDR is. It's not like, if you go and Google it, like you're not going to see my words in there. It's going to sound a completely different way. How I describe how it works is not like the format that we're given when we go through training, like, here, explain it this way. Because I'm like, that's too much. That's too much. People want down and dirty. What's the bare minimum that I need to know? And so then that's also been able to help me. And I use, once I figure out someone's thing, like, say I was your therapist, Jason, and we're talking about something, I'm going to bring in all the wrestling analogies that I can, because it's going to resonate with you.
Right.
But if I do that with Joanna, she's going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? So I'm going to bring in maybe some Harry Potter references or Friends references or cat references. I'm going to find what works for you, and I'm going to tailor that to you to help you better understand what it is. And I don't consider it like dumbing it down, because I'm not dumbing it down. I'm just watering it down enough for you to be able to drink it.
Yeah, I love it. And listen, anybody that's listening to this, if you're dealing with something, these ladies are very active on the Facebook page. And if you have questions, you have comments, you have concerns, or something along these lines, and you think that they may be able to shed some light on it or present it in a different way, or at bare minimum provide you with a resource to do some exploring on your own, by all means, that's what that page is there for. Do not be afraid to reach out. Do not be afraid to communicate. This is a judgment-free zone.
Right.
And
we will always do our best.
Right. Yep. That's the one thing that I need to stress more than anything, because, the whole preconceived notion on therapy is, oh, there's something wrong with me, or, oh, I'm less than intelligent, or I can't, or I'm incapable of handling this myself. No, that's not it at all.
No,
You
right.
just need to maybe approach it from a different perspective or
Right.
a different point of view, something that you had not thought about before. Well,
Correct.
here we are. By all
Yep.
means, reach out and they will help you in the absolute best way that they possibly can. And there is no shame in asking for help. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you wrong. It doesn't make you anything. It makes you human. And we need to rehumanize our society. And this is a big part of it.
I think you're strong if you ask for help because people act like it's a weakness. And so it takes a lot of strength to be able to step beyond that and say, you know what, I can't handle this on my own. I need some help.
For sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, all right, well, anything else you want to cover?
No,
I'm
I
good.
think that was a pretty damn good show.
Yeah.
I agree. And check out the description of this show, as it were, and we will have resources on there for, as a follow-up to this episode. And and once again, anybody that's got questions, comments, feedback, show topic ideas, anything of the sort, hit us up over on the Facebook page. Just look for Shh. We don't talk about that. It's pretty easy to find. It's the only one with that name. So.
All right, great.
Anything else?
No, I mean, we got to come up with a show title, but
We'll get to that in post.
nothing that needs to be done on here. So I think that we've covered everything that we need to. And between last episode and this episode, we've given people a good insight into what CBT looks like. And then anything further, you really need to seek a professional and get some deeper insight into it. It could really help you a lot. CBT can help in a ton of different ways. It's super helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, with that, we will go ahead and put a bow on this week's episode for Joanna Barnes and Natalie George. I'm Jason Klaus. We appreciate you tuning in. Go out this week. Be awesome to yourselves and to each other. And we'll see you next time right here on Shh. We don't talk about that on the PFC Entertainment Network.